Even with its struggles in the last year or two, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the MCU, is undoubtedly and without question the most successful, at least in terms of pure power and box office, movie franchise of all time. What Kevin Feige has been able to accomplish is absolutely incredible. Now, next up is the Marvels, and that's coming in a few months. But we thought we would take a moment, now that we got Secret Invasion behind us, we got the Marvels coming up. We thought we would take a minute here, because we get asked to do this a lot, to rank all 32 Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. This is not including the Disney Plus stuff. Got that? Okay. One disclaimer before we get going here in ranking the 32 films. Understand that all lists like this are purely subjective to the person that's giving them. Your list, 100% guaranteed, is not going to look like just mine. You're going to think one of the films I have in a number 5 spot maybe should be at number 15. And maybe you think the number 1 I have shouldn't even be in the top 10. That's all fine. This is really a discussion video to get you thinking and discussing. And what I absolutely want you guys to do is to jump in the comments of this video and leave your list of 32 to number 1 of how you would rank the 32 MCU films we've had up till now. Got it? All right. Let's get rolling. We're going to go from the bottom to the top. For me, it was a little bit of a question. I wasn't quite sure which to have at number 32 and number 31, but these are the two least good Marvel Cinematic Universe films to me, and I've given the honor of giving number 32 to Iron Man 2. Especially weird coming off of how strong the first Iron Man was. Iron Man 2 was just a bit of a, well, let's call it a disappointment. I really don't know what they were doing with Mickey Rourke in that movie. At number 31, the one that I almost gave the bottom spot to, and sometimes I will give this one the bottom spot, Thor: The Dark World. I love the Thor franchise. I really do. Even though Thor: Love and Thunder was a big step backwards from Ragnarok, I absolutely adore the first film directed by Kenneth Branagh. I love Thor: Ragnarok directed by Taika Waititi. But yeah, Thor to The Dark World sits at the bottom for me. At number 30, Ant-Man and the Wasp: QUANTUMANIA. I really disliked this film. I didn't think it was pure, utter garbage like some people make out to be. There were redeeming things about it. But yeah, especially with you really doing the heavy introduction. I know we got him a bit in Loki, but the heavy introduction of Kang, I think they dropped the ball on this one in a big way. At number 29, another Thor film, Thor: Love and Thunder. John, you said you love the Thor franchise. You already had 2 in the bottom there. I know. Thor: Love and Thunder, a movie that I think there's some joy to be had in. I had some good laughs in this thing, but the big problem with Thor: Love and Thunder is, of course, they took that brilliant balance of the heavy with the light in Ragnarok, and they swung way too much to the silly for Thor: Love and Thunder, which almost kind of undid some of the good work they did in Ragnarok. Anyway, at number 28, Black Widow. Not a terrible movie. I still don't really understand why this movie was made. I mean, as a prequel, it was already made past the death of Black Widow anyway, so it was really a movie just to set up Yelena. Was that it? Anyway, again, some decent things in it, but overall, I thought it was pretty ho-hum. At number 27, my film, The Incredible Hulk, with my co-star Ed Norton Jr. Again, it's not a terrible movie. There's some really good stuff in it. A lot of it shot in my hometown of Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. A bunch of it was shot in Toronto as well. I actually really did like Ed Norton Jr. as a Dr. Banner, like quite a bit. And there are things I like about this movie. So yeah, even though it's not near the top, I enjoyed the Incredible Hulk. All right, number 26. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Ant-Man 2. A step down from the first, what I thought was really excellent Ant-Man film directed by Peyton Reed. This one was still enjoyable. I mean, they gave, the title to 2 separate characters now, and really the load is carried by both of them, so it was appropriate for them to do that. And we got a pretty interesting villain and Ghost in that. So yeah, not one of the better MCU films, but not bad, sitting at number 26. At number 25, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. This was a film that, I think all of us were cheering for. 100% we were all cheering for it. The first Black Panther was so great. It was a movie made after the death of the great Chadwick Boseman. I still think it was a pretty bad mistake, although their motivations were right. I understand where their heart was, but I still think it was a pretty bad mistake to write out the character of T'Challa. And I thought this movie needed T'Challa, like badly. And so it turned out not bad. It's a pretty good little film, but a pretty big step down from the first Black Panther. All right, moving into number 24. We got Iron Man 3. Now, there's a lot of people who got really upset with the bait and switch because they thought they were getting the Mandarin, right? And we had this incredible looking Mandarin, right? Absolutely incredible, only for it to not really be Mandarin. And some people were kind of put off by that, and I totally understand why. I still thought the character was pretty good, which is why I was really happy to see him pop up in Shang-Chi. All right, at number 23, we have Eternals. This is a movie that I think gets better with more viewings. It's a very, very different kind of Marvel film that I think caught a lot of people off guard. It didn't follow most of the roadmap that the MCU films normally do. They definitely connected it into the MCU, but I think a lot of people went into this movie thinking it was going to be something else. Again, not one of the better MCU films, but one that I am growing in my appreciation for even more as we go. But it sits down at number 23. At number 22, we've got Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. There was a lot of complainers about this film, kind of like Thor: Love and Thunder. It swung a little bit too into the silly at times, but there was also some really, really good stuff in there to balance things out. I mean, I love the alternate universe stuff. We had John Krasinski as Reed Richards and all that. Like, there was a lot of good things in there. Yeah, a lot of poor things. It kind of balanced out a little bit. So I put it down at the number 22 spot. At number 21, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. A good movie. I think the least good of the three Guardians films. It was coming out after the incredible success of the first Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, they leaned more into Yondu, which I think was one of my favorite things about it. And of course, we had Baby Groot. But just narratively, I didn't think the ego thing worked as well as it could have. Solid movie, but again, it comes in at number 21. All right, into number 20. We've got Captain Marvel, a truly middling kind of MCU film. A lot of good things to enjoy about this film. Joined the $1 billion club. It was the first female lead, I think, in like 20-something movies from Marvel. They had gone without having a single female lead. They did it with Captain Marvel. I liked the film, and I think they set up the character very well. I like the whole idea with the Skrulls. I don't think they followed it up great with Secret Invasion. So a middling kind of MCU movie. I enjoyed it. Captain Marvel's at number 20. At number 19, Spider-Man Far From Home, the second installment of the three Spider-Man Marvel films that we've had so far. I mean, Jake Gyllenhaal in there was great. He was a fabulous villain. We knew we would enjoy him in it. We did. Again, there was just a lot of things that offset so much of the good stuff that was in there. So a solid movie, a strong movie, but again, I can't put it any higher than number 19. All right. As we move into number 18, the first Doctor Strange film. This is the one that was really trippy for a lot of people. I still remember the first time I watched it, I just was thoroughly entertained. Again, overall, it followed a lot of the stereotypical standard superhero beats and stuff like that, which I think preventing it from being a little bit higher on the list. Again, kind of a middling MCU film, much like Captain Marvel and stuff like that, but this was one that I really enjoyed, and he is one of the stronger characters. I don't just mean in terms of power, but as narratively speaking, one of the stronger characters in the MCU right now. And he's got to be a part of Marvel's future moving forward. All right. At number 17, the first Peyton Reed Ant-Man film. I was delighted by this movie. Peyton Reed brought just a sensibility to it. And it's one of the movies of the MCU that the MCU desperately needs. Gear-changing movies. Because you can't always have every single movie got to save the universe, got to save the universe, got to save the universe. The world's going to end. The world's going to end. Like, you got to change gears a little bit. Ant-Man was the first film that kind of came out of the gate that really changed those gears. Michael Pena was brilliant in it, and everybody adored Paul Rudd. All right, at number 16, an underrated film in my opinion, Captain America, the First Avenger. I don't know why, but there almost seems to be like a Mandela effect with a lot of film fans thinking about, oh yeah, Captain America, the First Avenger wasn't that great. But every time somebody goes back to watch this movie, you're like, this is a really good movie. So I've got Captain America, the First Avenger at number 16. At number 15, Spider-Man No Way Home. One of the biggest fan pops in comic book movie history, obviously with the extra, the other dimensional Spider-Man that we've known from our film history and all that kind of stuff. Upon multiple viewings, you realize, well, narratively, it's not as strong, maybe as one of the other Spider-Man films on this list, but still, Spider-Man No Way Home, almost a $2 billion film at the box office, by the way. It comes in at number 15. Guys, we want to take a second to thank the sponsor of today's video,
Marine Layer. All of us as guys are always looking for shirts that look good, but more importantly, are comfortable. Now, I want you to imagine the softest thing you've ever worn, and that's Marine Layer. Marine Layer is the go-to brand for great fitting and stylish closet staples. Based out of California, where we are, Marine Layer clothes are that perfect mix of laid-back style that also looks and feels premium. And these t-shirts stay soft no matter how many times you wash them. It's time to invest in a wardrobe that will actually last. For a limited time, our listeners and viewers get an exclusive 15% off discount with the code CAMPEA at marinelayer.com. Like many of you guys, when I looked at Marine Layer's website, I could tell how good their clothes looked. But it wasn't until I got my hands on them and actually put them on that I knew just how unbelievably comfortable they are, which for me is the most important thing. And guys, how many times have you felt that you were in between sizes when buying clothes? What's cool about Marine Layer is that they have in between sizes. You finally no longer have to make that difficult choice between medium and large and extra large. I think we can all admit that the perfect tee is hard to find, but look no further than Marine Layer. For a limited time, get 15% off with the code CAMPEA at marinelayer.com. That's CAMPEA for 15% off your entire order at marinelayer.com. Saving your closet one shirt at a time.
At number 14, the most recent Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. How would they end this franchise? How would they end James Gunn's run at Marvel? They did it beautifully. They brought in a great, strong villain, which is something that Marvel films don't always have, but they brought in a great, strong villain with the High Evolutionary, brilliantly played. It was heartfelt. It was emotional, a lot of big cheers, and a lot of crying in the audience. I got Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 at number 14. Moving into number 13, I think the second most underrated film in comic book history, which is the first Thor movie by Kenneth Branagh. I think I went to theaters, like literally went to the theater like 7 or 8 times to go watch this film. I absolutely adored it. It was one of the early Marvel Cinematic Universe films, which really paved the way and built the foundation for the future success of the franchise. I love the first Thor at number 13. Going on to number 12, Avengers Age of Ultron. This is another one that, like Eternals, is one that people find gets better and better the more they watch it. Like, I don't know what it was upon first viewing that a lot of us thought, okay, yeah, it's all right. But the more we watch it, I think we find it more and more special. Not as strong as maybe the other Avengers films. This is the lowest Avengers ranking that I have at number 12, but still one that gets better and better. Number 12, Avengers Age of Ultron. At number 11, the first Spider-Man film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Spider-Man Homecoming. Michael Keaton as Vulture was gold. It's one of my all-time favorite scenes in comic book movies. That moment where Michael Keaton is put together that Peter is Spider-Man, and just that confrontation. I love this movie. It was a great introduction. I mean, even though he was introduced in Civil War, but it was a true great solo film introduction. A film that a lot of us thought was going to be an Iron Man movie with special guest Spider-Man. Turned out not to be that at all. Spider-Man Homecoming at number 11 for me. At number 10, the film that truly did kick off the whole thing, the first Iron Man. A lot of people, me included, I'll put my hand up, thought this was going to be a wreck. Thought this was going to be Iron Man's just a poor man's Batman. That's what I said. I said that about a year before the movie came out. It's like, and I just had my doubts. I did. And then they played that first trailer at Comic-Con. The world of movies changed. And the first Iron Man came out and the Marvel Cinematic Universe was off and running. At number 9, I've got Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. One of my absolute favorite Marvel films that they've had since Endgame. I adore this movie. Again, something that not a lot of MCU films have, a true, strong, great villain. We got that in this film. Shang-Chi is a great new hero for cinema. It was bright. It was imaginative. The martial arts were intense. The bus fight scene is one of my favorite action scenes in all of comic book movies. I love this. I can't wait to see where the lore of this goes with the ongoing cinematic universe. All right. At number 8, I've got the first Black Panther. I believe the first comic book film in history to be nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. A legend-making performance from Chadwick Boseman. Everybody in the world wanted to live in Wakanda and would proclaim Wakanda forever all the time. It was just such a groundbreaking movie. So I've got the first Black Panther all the way up at number 8. At number 7, Avengers Endgame. Maybe the most highly anticipated comic book film of all time. Really, just on its surface, all things being equal, that was probably Batman versus Superman. But with the buildup of the cinematic universe, Avengers Endgame was the one that the world buzzed about. I remember it crashing all the ticket websites, broke opening weekend records, which I don't know that are ever going to be beat, and for a short time held the honored position as the #1 box office film of all time. Avatar took that spot back, but for a while, it was the #1 box office film of all time. I think as a couple of years have passed now, as people go back in the glow of Endgame and the on your left portal scene, whereas I think more people are recognizing a few of the flaws in the film, which was what prevents it from being even higher on my list. But out of the 32, I've got Endgame all the way up at number 7. All right. At number 6, Thor Ragnarok. This was a movie that was infinitely rewatchable. It was a change of pace for the Thor character, something that Chris Hemsworth said it was what they did in this movie that reignited his love for playing the character. And you could see it. It had that brilliant balance of heavy, dark things. I mean, a lot of people think the movie is really light, but when you think about all the dark stuff, right? Hela, Thor having to basically kill his own sister, the death of Odin, the loss of Thor's eye, the destruction of Mjolnir, the destruction of Asgard. See, so it was a really great balance of the really light, piss off ghost, one of the funniest lines ever in any comic book movie, with the heavy as well. Thor Ragnarok at number 6. At number 5, I would have put this lower on my list, except I recently rewatched the first Guardians of the Galaxy, and I forgot how bloody great this movie is. This is truly one of the best comic book films ever made. And I think it's just been so long since I sat down and rewatched the first one. I totally forgot just how great this movie is, not just as an origin story, and not just something that kind of expanded the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but take the comic book nature out of it. Take that out. This is just a great story about broken characters who find each other and find that collectively they are stronger than they are apart. And there's wonderful James Gunn humor in it, a terrific villain in The Accuser. I love this film. Guardians of the Galaxy at number 5. All right. At number 4, we got our next Avengers film, Avengers Infinity War. What they did with this movie, how they set it all up, and actually had the balls to, at the end of the film, the bad guy wins. It's just not something we see in comic book films, with literally a broken and wrecked group of heroes, with Captain America literally on his knees in the ground saying, "Oh God." And, Thanos wins the day. It is a beautifully constructed. And you know what? Considering how many characters are in this movie, the way they pulled this off gave it great narrative balance. It's just a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant film. One of the greatest comic book films of all time. I got Avengers Infinity War. At number 3, Captain America, the Winter Soldier. I still remember the first time I walked out, because I did some press interviews. I talked to the directors, Joe and Anthony Russo, and I talked to some of the cast before I saw the movie, and they were like, this is really like a 70s political thriller. I'm like, yeah, I'll believe that when I see it. But I'll never forget the first time I watched this film, and me and a whole bunch of other critics came walking out stunned, absolutely stunned. They really did make a comic book movie, a 70s political style thriller, all at the same time. The introduction of Bucky. I mean, it's just a fabulous, fabulous movie. Captain America, the Winter Soldier at number 3. At number 2, it's Cap again. It's Captain America, Civil War. My all-time favorite scene and sequence in comic book movies, the airport scene, the airport fight scene is still my favorite, even more than the portal scene. This is my all-time favorite comic book movie scene. The way they set up the personal, what this movie is really summed up great in? That one scene when they're sitting in the government offices and it's Cap and it's Tony and they're having a good bonding moment, but then the issue comes up again and they do such a great job of making this narrative driven, not action driven. Even though there's so much great action in it, it's a narrative driven story. It's a character driven story. A lot of people will call Avengers 2.5, whatever, but it was also truly a Captain America movie. I love it. It's my number 2 MCU film. And that leaves us with my number 1, the movie that really set the DNA of what the MCU was going to be. And it's the first Avengers movie. I still have not had an experience coming out of a movie theater since I saw the first Avengers like it, where I was shaking. I came out, I just couldn't believe what they had put to screen. I remember talking to the late great John Schnepp after the movie, like sometime after the movie. It's like he goes, kids, people who are like 20 years old, 25 years old, they won't understand. Schnepp would say, but I grew up in an era where what we just saw on the screen is something we never thought we would see. That we ever really thought in any real way we could absolutely positively see. And in an era when a lot of people complain about overcrowding in movies, Joss Whedon was able to take this big group of characters, make it truly feel like it was all of their movies. But most importantly, even though Iron Man had a lot of it and the first Thor movie had a lot of it, it was that first Avengers movie that stamped the blueprint and the DNA of this is what the Marvel Cinematic Universe really is. And it kind of ushered in this whole new era. I mean, yeah, the MCU was off to a great start with Captain America, the first Avenger, the first Iron Man, the first Thor, what have you. But it was when Avengers came out that the game was now changed. The landscape is now different. And for me, that's why, not just because of how great it is, Hulk, smash, how great it is, but also because of how important it is of what this film really did. For me, it takes the top spot. So guys, that's my ranking of the 32 MCU films. If you ask me again in 6 months, it might be a little bit different. I mean, maybe I'll rearrange it just a little bit, but that's how I have it. Look, again, all these lists are completely subjective. Your list will look different than mine, but I want to see what your list looks like. So I'd love you guys to jump down to the comment section below and leave your lists there.